Hello, everyone. My name is Alexander Lucard, and I am an HMIS System Administrator for Montgomery County. In today's training, we're going to be looking at the APR report. This is the big one. This is a long training, so please make sure you're comfortable, you've got some water, and that you are able to pause this at certain times so you can go to the bathroom. Because again, this is a very long recording. The APR is the center of your HMIS universe. The APR report is what HUD looks at. This is what you upload into your SAGE. This determines your funding, your NOFA ranking, your everything. This report is going to be the summation of everything you do as an agency, as a provider, as a case manager, as a data entry specialist. This report needs to be run at the very least once a month by every single person with an HMIS account so you can keep on top of errors and keep track of how you are doing as a provider. You want to make this report as close to perfect as possible, and we are going to be very, very strict when it comes to data quality on this report. So buckle up and let's get ready to take a look at the ART report, how to read it, and how to make corrections. Let's do this. Over here on the left-hand side, we have the reports button. We click on reports and we go to COC APR 2019. Don't worry about the name. It's not for 2019 only. This is anywhere. It's 2021 when I'm recording it. It doesn't matter. This is just the name of the report. We click on it. And then we have the parameters that we need to set, right? Provider type, provider or reporting group. If you're looking at one single program, you're choosing provider. If you're going to look at a group of programs, you're doing reporting group. For the purpose of this training, we are going to do reporting group so I can grab a whole bunch of programs together and mix them up. So we're not pointing the finger at any particular program or saying that one program is good, one program is bad. We do have to use the live site for this so you guys can understand how important this report is. A training version of the APR just will not cut it. Now, if you are doing a single provider, you have our default here. For me, my default is Montgomery County Continuum of Care, but you can pick search and you can pick whatever program you want out of the 312 available. You will only have access to the ones that are in your provider network. So for example, if you work at Interfaith, you're not going to be able to do Catholic Charities. If you're in cities of Gaithersburg, you're not going to be doing Stepping Stone. You're going to be having only a list of the programs that are in your selection queue. So I've got everyone, I've got 312 because I'm a system administrator. Yours is going to be a lot smaller. All right. So for the purpose of this, I'm going to choose reporting group. I'm going to pick one and I'm just going to pick HIP. And I'm going to pick HIP all. Now the reason I'm doing this is just it's going to grab a ton of HIP programs so that we can run it together. And again, so we aren't going to look at one program and call them out or also identify a single client as being in a specific program. This is going to kind of muddy the waters a little and make it easier for us just to look at data quality and not a particular program, whether they're doing a good job or not. Now, date range. What range do we want to look at? I'm going to take just for the month of July so far. This will bring up everyone who's in a HIP program for the month of July, or everyone who's in this reporting group, called HIP all. Could be that there's a brand new HIP program that isn't in this, so it wouldn't fall. And then finally, your entry exit type. The vast majority of you, 99% of you are going to pick HUD. Others might pick PATH if they're a PATH program, but we don't really have a lot of the other, if any, programs other than HUD and PATH. The vast majority of the time, it's going to be HUD. Now, we click Build Report. We click Build. We saw a little wheel show up for a second, and now we can see that the report is running. This is a list of all the reports that you have run at this point in time. So you can always come back and go up here and get a copy of the report for July 26th at 10:47 and 38 seconds in the morning. This report, although it is run in real time, will not record any changes or corrections that you make to it once it's finished. Every time you go back to it, it will be what the quality of the report was at this date and time. If you make corrections, you're going to have to rerun the report. Now we see a pop-up has just shown up. Report run is complete. 46670, that's the one we just made. So now we can click on the magnifying glass and we have generated our APR. Before we go into the nitty gritty, I want you to see how long this report is. If you printed this out, this is going to be close to 40 pages. It is long. And you're going to want to look at nearly every section. Again, at least once a month, no matter who you are, whether you're a case manager, whether you are a program manager, whether you run the whole shebang, you want to look at this report for each of your programs once a month. Again, we've chosen HIP. Here's a big long list of HIP programs, 21. This is the aggregated data of 21. For your own purposes, you will want to run this one at a time because you're going to want to be looking at trends in data quality for each of your programs. So one of your programs might be doing really good, one might be doing really bad. If you run them together as a reporting group, the lines are blurred, and we're only doing this for training purposes. Now, let's start to take a look at some of these sections. 5A, this is your report validation table. This is going to give you some basic demographics. How many clients were served in this time period? 969. So there are 969 clients served by the various HIP programs for the month of July so far. 711 are adults, 256 are children. Now, if you add these together, that makes 967, right? That's basic math. So that means there are 969 clients, but only 967 are identified as either adults or children, which means they are missing their age, right? So that's a good idea that you're going to want to fix some age. And here we go. Number of persons with unknown age, which means you have 2 clients you need to fix and get their age in there, their date of birth. You need to have this in. Most likely they are kids, probably babies born into the program. And like anything else, if you click on a number, it's going to give you their HMIS ID and their name. So right away, we see there are 2 clients with something we need to fix. Number of leavers. How many clients left the program in this time period? So from July 1st to July 26th, we have 4 leavers. Of those leavers, 1 is an adult. Of those leavers, 1 is an adult and a head of household. So that to me says there is 1 adult leaver, and if 4 people left, the other 3 are kids. Number of stayers, 965. We can see the number of those adults are 710. There are 17 veterans. There are 224 people listed as chronically homeless. There are 9 number of youth under 25. That means between 8 to 24. Number of parenting youth with children, 0. Number of heads of household, 523. This means there are 523 heads of household, singles and individuals. Remember, a single person counts as a head of the household. A head of the family counts as the head of the household. So this means we are serving 523 heads of household. If this was not correct, maybe you had 550 heads of household in your program. Hopefully your program is never that big. That would mean that you have like 27 people who are missing their head of household status, and that's bad. And we're going to take a look at why in a little bit. Number of unknown children and unknown age heads of household, 2. Again, it's probably the same 2 as up here, and you need to get that fixed. Remember, to fix it, you click on the blue button, you get their ID number and their name, you can go into their account and you can start to fix it. How many heads of households and adults have been in the program for over a year? 586. So these are some basic demographics, but right away you can see those age people that you need to fix. And again, you need to fix these. You need to have this as close to 0 error as possible. Why? Because there is something called a ranking system for your programs. The higher the ranking, the more funding you get. For every error you have, you drop down in the rankings, okay? Now, it could just be a tiny drop, but 1 question being incorrect might be enough to drop you from tier 1, which is fully funded, to tier 2, which is, maybe we'll fund you. So you have to get this as close to perfect as possible. I have personally seen an agency where 1 single question was enough to drop them from tier 1 to tier 2 because the competition was that tight for that program type. So please get this as close to 0 errors as possible. Now, how do we do that? let's take a look at these various sections. Data quality, personally identifiable information. These should be at a 0 error rate if possible. We can see that we have an 8% error rate, an overall score of an 8%, which is a 92% quality rate, which is fine. We never want to see, as the people who run the Montgomery County or continuum of care, we are making a policy that you may not have an error rate of more than 10%. The lower, the better. But we will start to get on you if we see an error rate of 10% or higher. Anything in double digits, we are going to contact you and we're going to make you come up with an action plan and give you a deadline to fix these. Now, name. This is the client's name. This is a 0% error rate. No one has an error. And you can see there are 4 different categories. 3, sorry. Client doesn't know, client refused. If you answer any of those, you're going to go into this column. Information missing. If you have left it blank, it's going to go into this column. And data issues. If there is something weird, some sort of logic error, something that doesn't make sense to the computer, it's going to put it under data issue. So name is good. Social security number. We have a 6% error rate. We have 54 clients with issues. 32 where it says doesn't know and client refused. And that's okay if you're a low barrier shelter. But anything other than low barrier, this is going to ding you. Why? Because the system wants a social security number. However, we might be serving some clients that don't have a social security number. Maybe they're 2 days old. Maybe they let you know, hey, our kid's born and you put them in the system and they don't have a social security number yet. Maybe they're undocumented. It doesn't matter. If you don't know or refused, you are going to go into this column if you are a non-low barrier program. You are going to go into this if you are if you are a low barrier / emergency / COVID program, but it's not going to ding you. So if you're a transitional program, if you are a permanent supportive program, if you're a rapid housing program, you want this as close to 0 as possible. Unfortunately, sometimes no matter what you do, you're going to have some in this category. It's just a fact of life if you are dealing with clients that can't have a social security number for whatever reason. Information missing. This means it just was not filled out. This is what's called a null value. You never want to leave something blank, and you never want to put in data not collected. Data not collected is super bad. We covered all your different options when we actually have covered, doing the entry exit or entering a client or entering a family. We're not going to rehash that here. But data not collected or something blank, that's bad, really bad. And we can see here, we've got 17 clients. If we click on it, it's going to bring up a list of 17 clients where this wasn't filled out. You have to get this filled out. Again, with family programs, usually they do a great job of filling out the head of the household, but then they forget the kids. And you got to do the kids. This is required for all members in a household. Data issues. So for example, Social Security, maybe you put in nothing for the Social Security number, but then for the question, Social Security data quality, you said full Social Security reported. Or maybe you put the number in and then you accidentally put client doesn't know, client refused. Because there's a logic error, it's going to go into data issues. Anytime you have where it's a 2-part question and the 2 parts aren't matching up or giving contradictory information, that's a data issue. Date of birth, we can see those 2 clients that are missing it and 2 clients with data issues. So this is most likely that their date of birth is entered, but then they said client doesn't know, client refused. Or they didn't put it in and they said, yes, we've entered the date of birth. Remember, it's a 2-part question. Race. 3 people have said don't know, client refused, and 13, it's just blank for an error rate of 2%. Ethnicity, this is that are they Hispanic or Latino question. And we can see that we've got some here. Gender, same thing, missing 3. So these are all things that you need to go in and you need to correct. Again, you want this to be 0% because you want to have the highest possible funding available to your program. The higher the error rate, the lower the funding. I cannot stress this enough. This is going to ding you in your SAGE. This is going to ding you in your NOFA. It sounds like we're being pedantic when we say you want this to have an error rate of 0, but you want this to be an error rate of 0%. You really, really do need this to be. And if you're going in every month and you're making the corrections, it is super easy to make this happen. You can do it. With my old agency, before I became a system administrator, we got it down to where we could correct everything for the entire month in under 2 hours. And that was for all of our programs combined. Why? Because we made it clear that this report is the most important thing that you do for your agency, because this makes sure you keep your funding and thus you keep your job. So you want to make sure this is as close to zero as possible. And when you make the case managers understand how important this report is to staying alive, you will get this down to zero and you will keep it there. And once you get it to zero, it is so easy to maintain that. Like I said, we managed to get our agency with all of our programs down to a 0% error rate, with only having to do about 2 hours of corrections a month across all of our programs. And that's because everyone understood the importance of this report and how to make corrections. Next up, universal data elements. 3 people are missing their veteran status. You want to get that in because some people will qualify better based on whether they have veteran status or not. There are some programs only for veterans. There are some ways where you will be ranked higher if you're a veteran in terms of getting housing. You want that in. Project start date. This should never be blank because they aren't going to pull in this report if they don't have a project start date. So this would be extremely, extremely bad if this was ever anything in here. Relationship to the head of the household. 95 people are missing this. You have a 10% error rate. That means 1 out of 10 clients is missing their relationship to the head of household. If you have done the head of household training, which you should have done, you will understand how vital this question is, because if you are missing your relationship to the head of household, they will not pull correctly for reports here. They will not pull correctly for reports in Report Writer. They will not pull for reports in ART correctly or in Click. This is arguably the single most important question. It must be filled out for everyone. It must be filled out correctly because, again, with 95 people missing their head of household status, all these numbers are more than likely off. You have probably a 10% error rate in what is being reported for income, for head of household status, for family status, for move-in date. Because if you do not have that head of the household question correct and filled out, your information just is not going to pull into reports correctly. Anytime you run this report, you want to go right down here to report relationship to head of household, get that list, get those 95, you pull it up, you download this list, and you start to work immediately. This should never be anything other than zero. You should never have any errors in relationship to head of household. This and the income questions are so vital to your ranking. This question, if you don't have this entered, it's basically 95 clients that do not count for your program. This is a 10% error rate. 1 out of 10 clients will not count for your program as being served. They will not count in reports because you do not have this filled out correctly. Please fill this out. This is a 10% error rate, and that is just not acceptable. Get these fixed. Client location, super easy to fix. There's only 3 here. There is only one possible option. You grab this, you do your drop-down menu for MD 601, and you're done. This takes 5 seconds to fix. You can get all 3 of these clients done in less than a minute. Disabling condition. This is going to be, did you fill out the, do you have a disabling condition? Yes or no question. We want to make sure that this is correct. That's 61 clients that are missing whether or not they have a disabling condition or not. And this is vital for some programs because in order to qualify, you need to have this in. So if we ran an audit, or God forbid, HUD runs an audit, and your program only serves clients with disabling conditions, people that have issues, and that you haven't even answered this question, you are going to get in trouble. This, again, should be at 0%. It is super easy to answer, and you just need to get it done. Again, you can get these down to 0% error rate so easily if you just take the time to run this report a minimum of once a month and start to make sure that you as an agency understand the importance of this. Next up, these are the most important questions after head of household. Income and housing data quality. Destination. These are how you code for when the client leaves your program. We've got 4 errors here. And what this says Because remember, 4 people left the program. Of those 4 that left the program, 4 have an error. That is a 100% error rate. Not a single person that has left the program has been coded correctly. That is really frightening. So again, you need to make sure that these are done correctly. After you do your head of the house questions, these are the ones you need to do, and all 4 of these need to be at 0. There's never a good excuse for a 100% error rate, unless this is like the person's first day of ever coding and they just blanked, they forgot, you know, they need a refresher, but this is bad. 100% error rate, this needs to be corrected. A 21% error rate at income at start. This is the HUD verification matrix. Remember, you need to answer every single income question, not just put in the one. So if they have an earned income, you have to fill out all the others besides earned income, like SSI, SSDI, retirement, pension. You have to fill out all those questions. There's more than a dozen. And a lot of people only fill out one. If you fill out one, guess what? You've made an error. You have to fill them out. Please refer back to the income trainings because it is so vital that you get these correct. Other errors that can happen is because there are multiple income questions. So if you have, say, do you have any sort of income? And you say yes, but then you fill out the matrix with all no, that's a logic error, and that's going to give you an error here. If you fill out yes, they have income, but don't put a dollar amount in, that's the equivalent of saying they make $0. That's an error. It's going to show up here. 1 out of 5 clients has an error with income at start. That's terrible. These need to be fixed. And again, the only way these are going to be fixed is if you go in and run this report every single month and make sure that your case managers understand how to do income. We have not 1, but 5 different income training videos on our YouTube site and in our LMS. You need to watch those. Income errors are the easiest to make and the hardest to fix. So please watch those videos. They will help you out so much and they will prevent this from being at 21%. You got to go in and fix these. This is kind of a disaster. Next up, income and sources at annual assessment. 548 clients have an error for a total of 94%. Again, this is a program type wide. This is awful. It is especially awful for the annual assessments for 3 reasons. 1, annual assessments take 5 seconds to do. So there's no excuse for this to be under 0. The second is that this is a very particular question to HUD. They have mandated this question. It must be answered for every client who is in your program over 365 days, and it must be answered every year they are in the program. HUD pays insanely particular detail to this question, and it is heavily weighed. The income question, the annual assessment questions are probably the 2 most heavily weighed in terms of your going up and down the NOFA ladder. So for this to be at 94% error rate, there is no excuse for that. You have to get these in. Again, the way to get this down, run this report and make sure your case managers understand the importance of this report and understand the importance of doing things correctly. At a 94% rate in annual assessments, there's a pretty good chance of, if this was COC wide, you'd be in the balance of state. You do not want to be in the balance of state, trust me on that. So you need to go in and get these fixed. If this was me, I would click on this. I would download some Excel with the download results button. And I would say you have 1 week to get these fixed. I would give it to each case manager. You have 1 week to get these fixed. Get it done. Because 94%, there's no excuse for that, especially for all the clients for a month. Imagine what that is like for a year. If 1 month, it's a 94% error rate. You have to get these in. Please watch the annual assessment training and also the annual assessment errors and how to correct it training. You need to get these fixed. Again, the 3 questions you need to fix most: relationship to head of household, income at start, income at annual assessment. You need to get these fixed. And income at exit, if there's any errors with their exit data, we can see there's a 0% here. So we just need to get these all fixed. Because again, these are the 3 questions that are weighed most heavily when you are ranked not only as a program, but as a provider as an agency, and as a COC as a whole. You want us to have funding? If you want your programs to have funding, you need to have these 3 questions down to 0. No excuses. You have to do it. Next up, chronic homelessness. These are hard questions to fix sometimes because they are conditional formatting. Depending on how you answer certain questions, these will show up. And sometimes what will happen is they'll show up, you'll fill them out, but then you'll change the answers to the original questions that made them show up, and so they'll disappear, and that's why you get an error here. So these are clients that are missing various things. They're missing time in household. They're missing their approximate date homelessness started, the number of times they were homeless, and the number of months they were homeless. You're going to have to go in and fix these. These can be a little bit tricky, but that's why we have a chronic homelessness training class. Again, this is the ultimate thing that you should be looking at, but you really do need to have been watching all these trainings. If you just go into this APR training, a lot of what I'm talking about is going to go over your head because you won't have done the specific trainings on each of these modules like chronic homelessness, income annual assessment, head of household status, housing move-in date, and so on. All right. Next up, timeliness. You are contractually obligated to get your clients into one of these 2 categories, 0 days, 1 to 3 days. This is something, again, that has come up about 2018, 2019, and it is one of these stronger columns that is being weighed for your funding. Now, what this does is it breaks down how long it takes you to put a client into your program. So for example, today is July 26th. If I enter your program on July 26th, my program start date is July 26th, but I don't get around to doing the work until July 31st. The system is going to look at the actual date it is in real life compared to the date you gave them for a project start date, and it's going to generate your timeliness score. In this case, if we didn't get the work done for January or July 26th until July 31st, I'm going to have a rating of 4 to 6. This is bad. This is worse. This is unacceptable. The only 2 that are allowed within your contracts are these first 2. HUD is very particular on this. And most importantly, where everything else you can fix error-wise, you cannot fix timeliness score. This is the one thing that is set in stone. You can only make it worse. You cannot make it better, which is why you have to do it right the first time. So please refer to that timeliness training. That is super important to make sure you have a high quality score here. And as you can see, 0 days. So even though those clients have a destination error, they were all exited the same day they actually left the program. It was done in basically real time. So you have a perfect timeliness score here. Awesome. Now, let's move on. Street outreach and emergency shelters. Are there any inactive records here? It's going to let us know. Because this is a HIP program, this does not refer back to street outreach, so you don't have to worry about it. And now we get into a lot of the stuff that is just visually checking. Those section 6 questions that we just did, this is what makes your program live or die funding wise. Now we're going into question 7 on, and the pressure's a little off. This is where we just want to make sure that everything looks right. So for example, how many adults? We have 529 adults without children, 179 with children. Unknown household type, 3. That's something that needs to get fixed. This should always be 0. But here's where we want to look. Data not collected. Do you see this? Data not collected is bad. That's why it's its own category. You want to get these in and fixed immediately. So those same people that have unknown age need to get that in because it can't generate whether they're an adult or a child until you get the age in. That goes all the way back up to here, that persons with unknown age. So as you see, not only does it count as an error here, but it's going to count as an error in multiple other questions like date of birth. And it comes back to haunt you here in the number of persons served. So even though you only made 1 error, you are getting dinged for it 3 times. It counts as 3 separate errors because you haven't filled it out. This is why it's so important to get these things in and be as close to a 0 error as possible. Here we go. With only children. This means it is a household of just children. One person is set up as a household by themselves and they are only a child. That needs to be fixed immediately. This is a great way to see all sorts of stuff that you need to fix. Missing their household type, a family of just children, people missing their age, so they don't count as an adult or a child. And finally, people who have moved into housing. So 259 out of the 969 clients have a housing move-in date. Please make sure you have referred to the housing move-in date training. Remember, that is something you have to generate an interim for and create the housing move-in date. There's a specific question. If it is not filled out, they will not count as having moved into housing. Please make sure you fill this out. As you can see, the vast majority are missing this question. We need to get this in. Point in time count for the last Wednesday. As you can see, this is all blank. Why? Because we are only doing July 1st to July 26th. What day is the last Wednesday in July? It's going to be July 28th for 2021, which is why there's nothing in here yet. It hasn't happened yet. We don't have data for July 28th, which is why this is blank. If we ran for the full year, this would give you your quarterly point in time count. This is super helpful, especially in January when we do a COC-wide point in time for the year. This should just be a quick generation and bam, here's some quick numbers for us. Unfortunately, with the amount of errors as we're seeing, it's not that simple. In a perfect world, in a continuum of care where the data entry is being done correctly and regularly, you should be able to just run this report and that's your point in time. Otherwise, we have a lot of fixes to do on our end. And unfortunately, we have a lot of fixes to do on our end. Next up, households served. 525 households are served, but only 200, less than half, have a housing move-in date. That would mean for HIP, only 200 out of 525 households have actually moved in to a program, have signed their lease, have moved in. And that's probably not correct, which means we have a lot of people missing their household move-in date. So you want to get this in. All right. And again, point in time count for households. The July point in time hasn't happened yet, and we're only looking at July, which is why this is blank. Number of persons contacted. We don't have to worry about this for a HIP program. So we can scroll down. Number of persons engaged. We don't have to worry about engagement for a HIP type program. Gender. Pretty easy. Breakdown. We're just looking for client doesn't know and data not collected, and we want to get these to 0. For some reason, we put data not collected in, which is never acceptable. You can see it's its own error column. That's why it's so bad. Please fix this. Gender of children, same thing. Gender of persons missing age information. We have 2 people missing age information and their gender is not collected as well. You got to get them in. These are 2 clients that are probably missing everything. Get them in and it's going to raise your rate up. It looks like they just were not filled out. Age, again, data not collected. You got to get this fixed. And this is a good age breakdown of your program. This is also helpful. Let's say you are an adult only program. Hey, look at all the people that are under 18. Something's not right here. Again, this is a mix of everything, but this is where you just want to check to make sure everything looks right. Again, unknown household type here in this last category. This should be 0. It's 13. You need to get these fixed. Race. We want to make sure that this is done. Look at this. Look at all the people that are data not collected. You can't have data not collected. Same with client doesn't know or client refused. If you are higher than an emergency program on the ladder, you can't do client doesn't know, client refused for things like race, ethnicity, or general information. You got to get these in. Ethnicity, same thing. This is a breakdown of ethnicity. You can see what's missing. Click on it, bam, get these fixed. Any of these blue items you can click on and it will, you can have it list. You can download it into an Excel compatible format and you can start to work on the changes. You need to make the corrections. Mental and physical disabilities at start. This will just gives you that information. Pretty cut and dry. You want to just take a look and make sure the numbers look right to you. Conditions at exit. As we saw, there are 4 people that exited, but only 1 has a disability, and that's a physical disability. When the numbers are that small, you should be able to look at it and go, huh, that's correct, or huh, that's not correct. Conditions of stayers. This gives us a breakdown of what issues each of the people staying in the program have. Number of conditions at start, same thing. Number of conditions at exit, pretty self-explanatory. Of the 4 people, 1 never had this filled out, that's bad. 1 has a condition and 2 have none. So we definitely want to go fix this person's information. Number of conditions for stayers, same thing. Data not collected, bad. Data not collected, very bad. Fire, bad. Anything in this category you need to get fixed. Client doesn't know or client refused, client condition unknown. These are all things you need to get fixed. Right? You've got a lot of work to clean up here. So you again, click on it, you generate it, you fix it. After you've fixed a section, you rerun the report and you start another section just in case, or start another area to fix just in case. Domestic violence, look at this. Look at how many people have data not collected. It is its own error rate. This should never be higher than 0. You have to fix these. Client doesn't know, client refused, you have to fix that. You cannot have doesn't know or refused for anything except social security number if you are higher than a low barrier shelter. You will get dinged. Person's fleeing domestic violence. Look at this. You got to get these fixed, guys. You got to get these answers in. Each one of these must be clicked on. You must generate the list and you must go fix them. 0% error rate is what we're aiming for. These numbers are just not good because look at that. 87 have a data not collected out of 210 possible. That is a third of clients do not have this answer correctly. That's really bad. Again, anything over a 10% error rate is unacceptable and you want this to be as close to 0 as possible. Living situation, where were they staying before they came into your program? This is a massive breakdown, and the only thing we want to do in terms of fixing is data not collected and client doesn't know. Look at all these. You go in and you get these fixed. You have to go through each section of this report and get these fixed. This is long, but once you get this down to 0, it will not take any time. So for this particular set of programs, this is going to be a lot of work at first, a lot of grueling work. But once you get it fixed, you will be good to go and life will be so much easier. You will notice an uptick in your funding, in your ranking. You got to do this. You can't be passive about your data quality because at the end of the day, the data quality is the only thing HUD cares about. This is the only thing the people that are giving you money to fund your program cares about. You must train to this report. You must make this the center of your agency's work. This is the heart. This is the soul of all the work that you are doing. And every error is basically a blood clot in your circulatory system. You don't want that. You got to get this fixed. Income range. Here we go. We can see 26 people said client doesn't know for income. You can't do that. Income tracking is vitally important for rapid rehousing, permanent supportive programs, permanent housing, transitional housing, HIP. You have to be keeping track of the income. 55 clients didn't even or have data not collected. 26, they just said doesn't know. You have to know. You cannot get into a higher level program without having some sort of information on the income. So there is no excuse, and this will ding you hard. Clients not meant to have an annual assessment, 126. 546 clients are missing their annual assessment. If you are missing your annual assessment, income will not generate correctly and you will be nailed. So not only are you getting nailed for not doing the annual assessment, every single income category in here you will get nailed for not doing. It's not even going to bring these 541 clients into here. It's just going to give you a negative score because you haven't done your annual assessment. So not only are you dinged in section 6, you are dinged in every section that looks for an annual assessment, like section 16, right? Like section 18, like section 19A1, like section 19A2. So one piece of information that takes 5 seconds to do, you are going to get dinged in over half a dozen categories. Just do the work and your ranking will rise. You got to do it, guys. It is so important. So this is tracking income at start and income at latest annual assessment. If you haven't done your annual assessment, it won't even generate it. It's just going to give you a negative score. 541 clients out of 710 are automatically negative because you did not do your annual assessment. So important. So important. And I know it sounds like I am scolding you guys like an angry school marm, but I'm trying to make you understand how much better you could be doing, how much higher your funding could be if you just took the time to do this correctly in the first place, or time to correct the errors. This is not good, and I need you guys to be aware of it. And again, this is only one program type. Imagine what your program type looks like, because it is probably similar. And the only way to fix this, the only way to get proper funding, is to stick to this, correct these errors. And again, it's going to be a lot of work. It is going to be a lot of work for you to fix these errors. But once you get them fixed, you're going to spend no time at all. It's just getting over that hump, having that cultural shift, changing that paradigm, whatever buzzwords you want to use. Once you get past that big hurdle, life will be so much easier and your data quality will be pretty close to perfect. You just have to take the time and make the effort to get this fixed. Again, what's the income breakdown? You can look at this and see if anything looks odd. Again, we're dealing with like almost 24 programs here, which are why the numbers are so high. But for a normal program, a single program, you should be able to look at this and eyeball whether these look right or not. Cash income category. Again, 541 clients aren't even going to generate properly. It's an automatic negative score because you don't have your annual assessment in. Same with the cash incomes. This is a pretty big matrix here, guys. And this is going to break clients down into various categories. You know, did the client have income at start but does not have an annual assessment? Again, all of these are based on annual assessments, their latest status. If you do not have an annual assessment in, it won't look at any of the interims. It is an automatic negative. So 541 clients that are being served out of 710, automatic negative. They do not even count as being served because you don't have that annual assessment in. So the most that it will look at for income is about 160 clients. So only 160 clients of your 710 actually count as being served in all these sections. That's like an 80% of your clients that don't count, that you might not as well have even served because their income section, and look how much income there is. It doesn't count. You might as well not have served them because you didn't do your annual assessment. According to HUD, according to this report, they won't count. And again, the income section is where you are most heavily graded. So for 80% of your clients not to count at all, the section that counts the most for whether you rise or fall, that's awful. You have to have a 0% error rate here. You have to, because otherwise you're probably going to get nailed with tier 2 funding. All right, so we've covered this. You have to get these in because 80% of the clients don't have it in. We can't even really discuss this because they're just not being done. This is only looking at about 110 clients, but this is super helpful because it will let you see how they're being ranked. Do they have income but has it shrank? You know, did they have income but not an annual assessment? Did their income increase? Performance measure, percentage of clients who accomplished this measure, which is their income stayed the same or raised. So this is great. Look at this. Out of the clients that are actually being counted, 60% of the clients, you know, hit the measure of maintaining or increasing income. Imagine what this would look like if you had done your annual assessments correctly. How much higher this number of 25 would be. It's probably several hundred Several hundred people are missing this. And again, this category, the 19s, are the most heavily weighed for your NOFA ranking. Disabling conditions and income at exit. Type of non-cash benefit sources. What's the breakdown of your non-cash benefits? Non-cash benefit sources, again, data not collected or not stayed long enough for annual assessment. Got to get these in. Because look at that, out of 710 clients, 673. Barely any clients are even being counted for having non-cash benefits. If you don't get the annual assessments in, or you haven't collected the data, they will not count. If a client refused and the data not collected, you got to get these in. Health insurance, same thing. 731 clients have data not collected for their health insurance at their annual assessment, which means they don't count. You have to have this. This is a HUD verification question. You have to get this in correctly. And as we can see, it's not in there. 731 clients basically do not have this filled out. And that's going to be a massive ding. And it's so easy to do the HUD verification matrix. Please go back and watch those trainings because this takes seconds. And for this not to be done says that either the client or the case manager wasn't trained right, or they're just not caring about their work. And I really hope it's neither of those, but those are really the only options that it comes down to. So we got to get these fixed. Length of participation. This is how long a client has been in your program. So look at this. 200 out of 969 clients, look at how many of those hundreds are missing vital, important pieces of information. You got to get them in. Median and average length of stay, pretty self-explanatory. Length of time between project start date and housing move-in date. We have 4 people who never were exited. All 4 of them were exited without a housing move-in date, which is why you're getting that destination error. You have to go in and put them in with a housing move-in date if they were actually housed or leased up. Time prior to housing, there's our information. 535 are missing their housing move-in dates. They do not count as being housed. 147 are just, there's no data regarding this question. How long, when did their homelessness start? So that's another 147. So out of the 834, 670 plus clients don't even count, are automatically negative results for you guys. You got to get the information in the system. And finally, exit destination. You cannot choose client doesn't know or client refused. Why? Because it's an automatic negative. We have a whole thing on housing destination training, and you need to watch that. Permanent destinations, these are good. Temporary destinations, good or bad, depending on your program type. Anything here under other, residential op project, other, client doesn't know, client refused, no interview completed. These are automatic negatives. You are automatically giving yourself a negative score here, except for deceased. Deceased is the only one that will go into this exclude from calculation. If you choose other, it is an automatic negative. If you choose client doesn't know, client refused, it is automatically negative. It is your duty as a case manager, if you are dealing with a client, to put something in that is factually correct. You have to do this, especially for higher level programs. The higher level your program, the more something here is going to ding you. Veterans. One person's missing veteran status, get it in. Otherwise, we can see chronically homeless veteran, non-chronically but homeless veteran, not a veteran. And all these questions now are good for the next little bit are going to be veteran questions. Number of veteran households, gender of the veterans, age of the veterans, conditions. And again, you want to get these in, you need to make sure you get these in. Look at this, number of veterans without annual assessment. Got to get these in. These 12 especially need it because they are veterans. So on and so forth. Look at this. These are questions just specifically towards veterans. They're questions we've already covered, but now it is looking at just people who have the veteran question filled out. Next up, A lot of questions we've already looked at already, but is only looking at whether or not they are chronically homeless. So this breaks down to chronically homeless, not chronically homeless, doesn't know, or data not collected. And again, these are all questions we've looked at with children, gender, age, but it is a breakdown of whether they are chronically homeless or not. As you can see, we have 224 clients that are chronically homeless. So from this point on, these questions under section 26 are just looking at those 224 clients: age, conditions, income. And then we get to section 27, and it's just looking at youth on their own. So 18 to 24, who are listed as heads of the household. We're going to be looking at these. This is what a youth is. A youth is anyone between 12 and 24, usually should be 18 to 24, who is the head of the household, because we don't serve people under 18 as the head of the household. So for Montgomery County, it's always going to be under 18 or 24. Anyone that shows up at 12 to 17, that is an error. That probably means that you have put little Jimmy, who is in a family, as the head of the household instead of the parents. So 18 to 24, we want to make sure that this looks right. And again, gender, living situation, length of participation, and exit destination. Cash income, same questions we've already looked at, but this is specifically for heads of the household that are 18 to 24. And now we have finished going through the entire ART report. Great, right? So we've covered a lot, but it is vitally important that you get these questions done. You must absolutely, positively get this error rate as close to 0 as possible. Anything that is 10% or higher is unacceptable, and we as the county will start reaching out to you and being pretty militant at getting these rates down. You will be called on the table for why your rates are this high. You will have to be able to account for why your rates are that high. And things can happen if your rate does not go down. And that could be anything from getting a deficiency notice to HUD pulling your funding. It can get that bad. I've seen it happen. So we want to make sure that your error rate is as low as possible. We as the county will not accept anything under 10% for an error rate in any of these categories. Some of these have to be 0, like annual assessment, head of the household. We can't accept anything except 0%, because otherwise your reports, your accounting will not be correct. You need these done. You absolutely need head of the household and annual assessment. And we also like to see that income at start being correct. So please get these in. I know this has been kind of a harsh training compared to the others where it's like, hey, let's do this together, yay. But it is, I cannot emphasize enough how much this is the heart and soul of your program, how much this is vital to your funding, to your program staying alive, to your job staying intact. This is a harsh reality. This is tough love. You have to get these in. People like myself, your system administrators, your HMIS team are available for one-on-one trainings with your agency. If you need help understanding how to get these down, how to make annual assessments correct, how to get your income correct. We have all these videos in our YouTube page, on our LMS, on our Talent LMS, and we can schedule. That's what we're here for. We are here to get your error rates down. We are not here to make the corrections for you. We are here to show you how to make the corrections. At the end of the day, it is up to you to get these errors fixed. It is up to you to make these corrections. It is up to you to keep your funding intact. Kind of a dour note to go out on, but it is so vital that you do this. It is so imperative that you get all of these answered correctly, that your error rate is below 10%. We are here to help you, but at the end of the day, you have to make these corrections, and you live or die by the quality of this report. You see 100%, that's bad. 94%, 548 out of your 900 clients are missing their annual assessment. That is half your clients that essentially don't count as being served because you don't have that annual assessment in. and it will not generate income correctly. Your incomes won't show up correctly. Your non-cash benefits, your health insurance, all these questions, because you did not do an annual assessment, that is over 6 questions that you will be dinged at individually for not doing that. And it is a 5-second fix per client. So again, this has been dour. This has been harsh. This has been tough love, but you have to get these in. So I know together, working as a team, you working with the HMIS team, we're going to see these error rates go down to next to nothing in no time. You just have to make the time to get these fixed. You have to understand that this is the most important thing for your agency, because this is all HUD sees. It doesn't matter how good you are at case management, how good you are connecting with these clients, how good you are turning their lives around. All HUD is going to look at are these error rates, are these numbers, is the income rising? And that's all they're going to care about. That's all they're going to use to decide their funding. This report, if your data entry is bad, your funding is going to be bad. So if you see these numbers as they are with these high of error rates, imagine how good your funding is going to be when that error rate gets to 0. Imagine how much you can do with that extra funding. I've seen it happen personally, and I know it can happen for you guys. And that's what we're here for as that HMIS team. We are here to help you get that down. But again, at the end of the day, these error rates are your responsibility and you will be held accountable for them. That's all I've got for you. I really hope this training woke you guys up. This has been enlightening. Again, reach out to us for one-on-one trainings, whether it's on a specific section of the APR or a giant APR training as a whole. That's what we're here for. We want you to succeed. We are here to be your biggest cheerleaders. We are here to give you excellent training. But at the end of the day, if you don't make the error, if you don't fix the errors, it's on you. So thank you again for joining me today. And I look forward to doing more trainings with you in the future, both live and virtually. Have a great one.